Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the third class of the Torah project. Today's class is generously dedicated to and sponsored by Yisrael ben Chaya in honor of his parents, Nachum Aaron ben Esther and Chaya bas Fredo. May they be blessed with Shalom Bayis, Parnas Barchava, Ashirus, all the good things from Aleph to Taf, and may their contribution permit us to have an amazing evening learning the Alter Rebbe. Okay. 3 times is a chazaka, so I don't know what this means for us, but Baruch Hashem, there's been no gap and pure consistency, thank God. We are going to continue in Torah or we're going to start on page Vov. Baruch Hashem, the previous Maimarim will be on Spotify, on YouTube, and on podcasts. Yeah, we got all the way to Vov somehow, some way, miraculously. You didn't miss anything. I recorded them 8 years ago, and we're imbuing our time together with what we started 8 years ago. So I'm just gonna, but that's it. From now on, it's gonna be, don't miss, because now it's gonna be new Maimarim with live content. Okay, we're holding on page Vav. The Maimer is called Lehavin Inyan Habrachis. Sorry, this is better. Okay, on the bottom of page Vav, Lehavin Inyan Habrachis. Very fascinating Maimer. The Alter Rebbe said this in the year 1803 at a Sheva Brachis of one of his students, I believe. And we'll see the connection that the Tzemach Tzedek makes to Parshas Bereishis is because one of the Sheva Brachas has to do with Adam and Chava, right? It's one of the brachas that we give to the newlywed couple. So being that that's the case, as we're going to see towards the end of the Maimer, also just a warning for those on Zoom and also publicly, is this is not a weekly Parsha Shir. I should just emphasize that. This is a Torah or project that we're going through the Sefer Torah or, and therefore if you're expecting Parshas Vayera, we will cover that Amir Hashem in hopefully a few weeks, maybe a few months from now. But we're going to go ala Seder in Torah or, as we explained in the first class, refer to the introduction of our first class of the profound power that learning the whole entire Sefer of Torah or Likutei Torah have on our lives. So without further ado, Lahavin Inyan Habrachis, to understand the concept of brachas. The men of the Great Assembly established the concept of a bracha in the Second Temple era. That would imply that in the first Beis HaMikdash they didn't make brachas. So that which our Jewish society has been annoying, for lack of a better term, our children, or us as the recipients of our parents, did you make a bracha? Did you make a bracha? Did you make a bracha? That's been happening since Bayis Sheni, not Bayis Rishon. So how many years between Bayis Rishon and Bayis Sheni? How many years? So Bayis Rishon was for 410 years. There was a 70-year gap in between, and Bayis Sheni is 420 years. Okay? And since Har Sinai, let's say, since the giving of the Torah until Bayis Sheni is around close to 1,000 years. Yes? Okay? So close to 1,000 years that we didn't have the concept of a bracha, which is so fundamental to our modern day capacity with Judaism. So the Alter Rebbe is saying, how did we get here? The idea is, every single Jew are the believers, sons of believers, in which exhausted the philosophers and the examiners of belief and of understanding how they could rationalize the idea of a Jew being so tethered and so connected to their faith. This bothered them. Because at the end of the day, we're a people and we're experiencing this now, 2025, but between Spanish Inquisition and all of the other movements of get rid of the Jew out of this country, which even began as a destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash, the Roman era, it's unfathomable how we stay so connected. So therefore, the only way we can explain it is by saying we are ma'aminim b'nei ma'aminim. We are believers, the sons of believers. Not only that our parents are believers, but we belong to the energy of belief. Okay? When I say it's your bar mitzvah, it's your bas mitzvah, right? It's not you're the son of a mitzvah, right? You're now belonging to the energy of a mitzvah. You are the ben, right? You now belong. You are the bas. You now belong to the concept of mitzvah. So ma'aminim b'nei ma'aminim is we are the children, not only that are of the parents that believed, but we are the children of the concept of emunah that is so tied in with our soul that we cannot divest ourselves from it, and this bothered the philosophers so much. The concept of emunah, the concept of faith, I'm going to translate it as faith, but it's not the best term. But the concept of belief or faith is higher than grasp, higher than rationale. Right? The Rebbe would famously say, I can't say it in Yiddish, maybe you could, but emunah is a thing, emunah is a zach, emunah is a concept, a thing, that all the questions in the world will not weaken it, and all the answers in the world will not strengthen it. Very powerful. Because we're like, once I know the background and the dynamic and how the philosophy works, then I'll become more in tune. Has nothing to do. You have a brain, it has to be utilized, chachma bin adas for sure, but there is a sixth sense of the soul. We have 5 senses, and emunah is like a 6th sense. I'll say it's even deeper than intuition. Kabbalistically, for sure, it's the deepest recesses of the crown. We know that we have atik, arich, and then people don't consider this, but emunah is really the capacity to believe in oneself is the engine for being able to have pleasure and desire in creation. Okay? But maybe we'll discuss that soon. And this is even, emunah is even higher than the understanding within the source of the godly soul. As we say, that their mazel saw. What's a mazel? Mazel translated roughly as a zodiac, a constellation, but really we'll say some type of deeper vision than your regular vision. This is the vision of the soul that is not encumbered by the vision of the mind, in which at this point no thought can grasp her whatsoever. So now, usually we associate this concept, leis machshavet tfisa b'eh, with who? Hashem is leis machshavet tfisa b'eh. But look what he's saying. Who is he talking about? That's not talking about Hashem. That's talking about no thought can grasp the emunah of a Jew. No thought, no rationale, no understanding, no brain as deep and as profound and as sophisticated as we can be can understand the language of emunah. And this we'll say is even higher, more exalted than even the mazel. So now, again, remember, what are we analyzing? What's the purpose and where did the concept of blessings become introduced to the Jewish lexicon? So what does this concept of emunah have to do with making a bracha? And again, the notion of brachas was only instituted in Bayis Sheni. So what happened to the concept of brachas prior to Bayis Sheni? That's around 1,000 years from Har Sinai to then. So look how beautiful he weaves it all together. In the times of the first Beis Hamikdash, now he's conceptualizing why we didn't make brachas, we didn't have the institution of brachas in the first Beis Hamikdash. And again, obviously that's applicable to Har Sinai, 40 years in the desert, the various mishkans of Shiloh and Noiv, when they entered into Eretz Yisrael, right? All of that whole time period, this concept is applicable. Why? In the times of the first Beis Hamikdash, the Jewish souls were on a very highly sensitive capacity. And the light of the Infinite One or the infinite light of God, was manifest and present in their souls. We'll use a better term, benafsham, in their consciousness. That means that godliness was not just on the periphery or a subconscious faculty that you're trying to get to. This is part of my life. Like I see the water bottle in front of me, like I see us, physical human beings together. This was the manifestation of the divine presence, the Orein Sof, in our souls. To cause that our faith was so manifest that it's as if I see. So here what he wants to say, even though faith is not something that can be grasped by the concept of vision, nevertheless, the faith was so woven with our consciousness that it's as if I'm seeing it. So that which usually requires something to be, to the faculty, the capacity to believe in, you're seeing it. Again, I use this mashal a lot.
It's not like Emunah,
What?
It was not like no Emunah, like they saw the God.
So again, the mashal that I usually give, we spoke about this at length last week, is the idea of a microscope. The microscope is not, you don't need to have faith that if I show you something on a microscopic level, right, that this is existing. Why? Because you have the tool called a microscope to enlarge and magnify this thing, whatever you're looking at. Let's say it's water. So I'm telling you this is water. And you're telling me, no, it's hydrogen and oxygen. Where's the hydrogen? Where's the oxygen? All I see is this liquid thing. I don't see anything in the molecular structure towards the naked eye. Why not? Because the tool that I'm using doesn't have the capacity to see hydrogen and oxygen. But if I use the tool, and therefore, right now, peripherally, externally, I have to use my faith to believe. I have to believe the scientist. I have to believe the person that knows more than me, that says this has hydrogen and oxygen. I don't even know what that is. Until we get to the molecular structure of the matter, and now I'm able to see as if, and I don't have to believe anymore. That they see the thing, that the faith was so vivid, it's as if they saw it. Like I'm telling you, you don't have to have faith in me anymore. I'm going to show you in a microscope the hydrogen and the oxygen that's existing in the water. However, the Jewish people's souls took a descent. They plummeted. And therefore, tiknu anshe knesses hagadola habrachis. And therefore, the men of the Great Assembly established blessings. Institutionalized this concept of bracha. So what did they need to do? What was happening? Because our faith withered, and therefore, they needed to strengthen the faith of the Jewish people. What was the mechanism to be able to strengthen the faith of the Jewish people, to arouse and awaken this sixth sense of emunah in our souls? Make a bracha. Bracha is literally your spiritual microscope. To be able to gaze at the energy that now you're bringing into creation. That which I once saw 1,000 years ago in Bayis Rishon, now I can't see it anymore. So now what do I need to do? I can't use my regular eyes anymore. I have to use my microscopic vision. What are they going night goggles? Yeah, I have to use my
night vision.
I have to use my night vision goggles at night, right? When it's dark, when it's concealed, and I can't see. So now I have to use a space and a capacity within my soul to be able to now gaze upon godliness, as difficult and as hard as it may be. So comes Anshe Knesset HaGedolah and says, how are we going to strengthen and embolden the faith of the Jewish people? Give them brachas. Make them make a bracha. Lahamshich gilei emunah. What are you doing when you make a bracha? You're drawing down emunah from a state of subconscious to conscious. What do we say before? Anachnu ma'aminim b'nei ma'amin. We're children, the children, believers, the children of believers. But what happens when the parents and the children get into a fight? You have to go to a therapist, or a rabbi, or mashpia. Depends who you talk to. Yeah. What does a therapist do? Hopefully, he mends the relationship back together. Okay. So you need some type of third party to be able to coalesce and fuse together the two opposing energies. So now, what's the opposing energy here? Me, the thickness and density of my ego, and the thickness and density of my being, not being able to see godliness right now. Even though mentally or emunally, I believe that there's a God, and I believe not only that there's a God, but that He created the world, and I believe not only that He created the world, but He's recreating the world every moment and second, but my behavior is antithetical to my belief system. So what can I do to bring more zest to my consciousness? When you make a bracha, again, we're going to hopefully say, I'm going to use the parentheses, properly, meaning in accordance with the mindset of the Alter Rebbe, you're now lahamshich gilei emunah zu. You're now drawing this faith, this subconscious spiritual language that the mind cannot even handle, liyez baruch, and you're drawing it down. So the faith that I once had, that the Jewish people once had collectively, when they were able to gaze upon and envision and see godliness, spirituality, shechina, divine presence, whatever term you want to use, now that dissipates, now that is withdrawn, and Hashem's presence is not as on the forefront of our consciousness anymore. So what do we need to do? Make a bracha every 3 seconds of your life. Mm-hmm. Why? Because now you have the divine shechina and the emunah that took a back seat, that withdrew. Now you're trying to string her back into creation. And we see this within the formula of the words of a bracha. Baruch, Ata, Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam are all expressions and are all tools to be able to reveal in different strata and different layers of the soul this emunah consciousness and the belief and faith that Hashem is absolutely real and present in my life. Let's see. That the emunah that was that took a back seat, that withdrew, is now going to be baruch. We're going to draw it down, like in the Hebrew from the word brecha, like you pull together. V'nimshach havaya, and now you're drawing down the infinite light of Hashem, begilu l'mata, in a revealed way. Now, I don't want it to get too. I want to move in the mimer a little bit. Oh, I will say, I should have said this in the introduction. Hashem will bless us at whatever stage we'll get to, but I believe this is going to be a 2-part class. So please bear with me that if we get stuck or if we stop at a certain time tonight, we will complete it in Mirz Hashem next week. And it really does take a roller coaster of a ride between concepts. So just have some patience. The cynic in, I don't want to say all of us, because God forbid, nobody's cynical in the room, but the potential cynic in some of us would say, but even the bracha, that's not helping, right? We're saying the bracha is going to help you become a better believer. And I've been doing brachas my whole life, and I don't know, we're still struggling. So again, it's because we haven't learned this mimer yet. Maybe it will change our life. Maybe we didn't learn this mimer 25 times, but we never learned it like we did now. And maybe we become more sensitive as we grow. I'm not only speaking about in age, but I'm speaking about in desire for growth and wisdom, to become more sensitive to the moment and more present in our blessings and in our ability to receive the potential energy that is in a bracha. And perhaps if we take a little bit of time and a little bit of thoughtfulness and a little bit of intentionality, then it becomes a different language, a language that we've never spoken before. So that's my bracha, my blessing to all of us, is by learning this, we become a little bit more slower. You know that word, right? It says va'avadat mehera, right? What does it say? Va'avadat mehera, right? And you will quickly be lost from the goodness of your land. Yeah, if you don't do this, whatever. So Chassidim would say a word, va'avadat mehera, that va'avadatam, you know what you should lose in your life? You know what you need to get rid of? Mehera, mehirut. The need to go to the next mimer, the need to go to the next day, the need to go to the next va'avadat mehera, lose the swiftness. God forbid not to say that you should lose the alacrity. There's a difference between alacrity and impatience. So va'avadat mehera means, va'avadat mehera means lose the impatience. There's some things in your life that's good to lose. Okay. The seder ha'ishtalshelus hamshachas hagilei hu mitichila liyes havai lekinu. You are not only saying a bracha to God. You're not only blessing God, and we really have to rationalize this idea of what does it mean to bless God. God needs your blessing, that when you say shahakol niya bidvar, you're now blessing Him. He's missing something that your words are actually fulfilling in Him. Or the whole notion of the English language and saying the word blessing is not really congruent with the message what a bracha really is. Rather, a bracha is that you become a co-creator with God. Hashem permits you to become a co-creator with Him, and you are actually stationing the building blocks of creation every time you say Baruch Ata Hashem, etc. Huh?
When you make a bracha,
Yeah.
Why is there Marvin Shalom? Because they weren't talking the bracha.
Oh.
Every time you bless a fruit or something, you're giving it.
And that makes perfect sense because now we're trying, what did we say before? My ego, my presence, and then the matter itself and Ruchnius are seemingly antithetical. So we want to soften creation to allow the energy of godliness to pervade it. And we already know that it does, but now we have to bring it from a state of concealment to a state of revelation. So now the revelation is the bracha. They say that the order and the chain reaction of worlds, as we draw down the revelation that began with Hashem's name Yud Kei Vav Kei, and then entered into a space called Elokeinu, our God, that we bring it from a state of concealment to a state of revelation, that it's not only this abstract divine creator, but rather He is a personalized God, like it says in the Aseret HaDibros, Anoichi Hashem Elekecha, not Elekechem, because it's personalized and every single one of us received it. Hu Giler and Baruch ben Neshamas Yisrael is the revelation of the infinite light of Hashem in the souls of the Jewish people. Liyos Elekeinu Mamish, in order that He should be our God literally. In a state of transparency, as we are the inner dimension of creation. Now this is a loaded line. Okay, what he just said needs a long time to unpackage, and I'll do my best to do it in less than 2 minutes. What does it mean? He's going to contrast it now to malachim, angels. We're going to get into a very abstract conversation about what are malachim. Okay? But before that, he said a statement. The Alter Rebbe says that the Jew is, when he says a bracha, when she says a bracha, she is drawing forth in her soul a revelation of godliness that is on the level of personalization, and that causes you to be a transparent conduit to the divine message. Why can you do that? Is because you stem from the inner dimensions of creation. You are not the periphery of creation. You are the inner message, the inner purpose, the inner engine of why God creates the world is you. The revelation of that and the feeling that that is the truth and that is the fact occurs every single time you make a bracha. Because you're not only drawing that down into your soul, you're actually drawing it down, kiviyachol, into God. Because God, like we said, God is a co-creator. You're, so to speak, Hashem's permitting you to draw down some level of elokus that He is lacking, so to speak, or He causes Himself to lack, for the philosophers in the room. He causes Himself to lack, and thereby, by creating you, and you now making a bracha, you're now co-creating with Him. Why can you do that? Because you're from His pnimius. You're from His inner recesses. You're from His inner dimension. You're from His inner desire. Who is the outer desire? It's not this table. Mashein ken hamalachim, which is not the case by the angels. Hey mechitzoynis aylumis. They are from the externality of creation. Now again, even the externality of creation relative to our physical world, we're not speaking about physical things. And if we can, just think about it on a conceptual level. Imagine in your mind, you already see. Anybody in a university or a college right now? Yes. Okay, you have to write papers. Okay, so before you start to write, you have to have an idea of what you're going to write. Okay, so now everything is relative to each other. So your first draft of the 1,000 word, 20-page essay, whatever you have to do. Okay, that for you relative to what you initially wanted to do, that's called an expression of your pnimius, right? This is what I wanted. This is what I dictated, and then you go over it 17 times and you throw it away. Why? Because relative to what you really want, it's only chitzonius. Now, everybody knows that the way to get to the conclusion is only by actually writing the first time, or the second, or the third, or the 100th. So relative to the actual finished product is what we're calling chitzonius. So now we're calling the malachim heim chitzonius ailumis. Not that they are superficial fragments of creation. They are very, very much fundamental to creation, like the first and second and third essays were to your finale. But relative to the finale, they are chitzonius. If that makes sense. Shaleim nemar, that regarding these malachim, it says, Umisham yipared v'hayil arba rashim. It says a pasuk in Bereishis and Genesis that Hashem creates 4 rivers, and these 4 rivers are that from one conglomerate river stems 4 heads of other rivers. Everybody remembers their names? Gichoin, Pishoin, Chidekel, and Pras. Very good. Tigris, Euphrates, Nile, and another one that we can't say in English. Okay. Okay. So that's a physical river. And these rivers are monstrous. Okay? Look up what the Nile River looks like on your Google Maps. Okay? It's insane. Everything in the physical world is a mirror reflection of a spiritual energy. And therefore these 4 rivers are actually expressions under the dominion of. Now again, you have upon them, but the Alter Rebbe goes straight to who are these 4 rivers? Why dafka 4 rivers that create that are the aqueducts of creation? Arba naharis. These 4 rivers, arba machanes hashchina. They are actually personifying the 4 camps of the divine presence. Who are the 4 camps of the divine presence? Machane Michael, Machane Gabriel, Machane Raphael, and Machane. Who's the 4th? Uriel. Uriel is the 4th. He doesn't get mentioned so much. I mentioned in the first class, Bashkacha Pratis, I'm going to try and find one idea every single week, even though we're not learning the Parsha, to attach it to the Parsha. So here you go. You guys wanted the Parsha? Baruch Hashem. Who comes in this week? No? The Malachim come. The Malachim come, right? Vayera El Avram. This is the Malachim. Raphael, Michael, and Gabriel come. One to heal him, one to turn over Sdoim, and one to give the good tidings that he's going to have a child. There's your vort. So now, these Malachim are the progenitors of the physical rivers that Hashem says He creates. Where? In the first days of creation. Razal, Brachis Daf Dalid, Michal Ba'achas. Now, regarding these, this is very deep word. Regarding these angels, the Gemara says that they need to fly. They have to fly. But each one, depending on their personal composition or makeup, flies in a different way. I'll explain in a second. Michal Ba'achas, it says, Gabriel be'shtayim. I think he's going to say it here. No, let's see. Michal be'achas. It says Michal will fly with a flap of a wing in one flap, and he will go from one edge of the world to the next. Okay. Again, let's understand this. We're going to understand this on a conceptual, psychological level in a second, but let's just give the Gemara a chance. Now, the Gemara is elucidating regarding these 4 heads of the camps of the Shekhinah, that again, their physical manifestation in this world is the 4 heads of the river, that they need to, if the Zoom can mute themselves, please, thank you, that the Malachim are able to achieve the full. I'll mute myself, I don't know. Okay. That the Malachim, so I'll say the whole thing. Is a shir al Neshama Yisrael, and it didn't say, the Gemara didn't say any amount that the Jewish soul had to fly. Lefi she'inyan tisa shetasim es ha'ilam lo'ishach gabi neshamas klal. What do we say? We say the Malachim are the chitzonis ha'ilamis. Chitzonis ha'ilamis means that they are from the exterior dimension of creation, in which they lack the connectivity to the pnimius, to the inner dimension of Hashem. Now, what happens when you're very, very close to somebody? Do you have to scream? No. Do you even have to talk? No. Even blink of an eye. It's the idea of that we have a soul language higher than speech. So the neshama is so close, is so intimately woven within Hashem's essence, that when do you have to say fly? Tisa means to fly, meaning to glide. That Malach Michal requires 1 flap of the wing, and Gabriel requires 2, And it says, "Shailim umloye einam toisim makim klal negdam mashinkid lagabe amlachim tevis ha'olam eze makim ela shemichal daile betisa achas veGavriel b'shtayim chuli veEliyahu be'arba." Eliyahu Hanavi has to flap his wings, whatever that means, with 4 im gufay, with his body. Shehaya tchila gashmi v'ne'afeh chuli. That at first he was a physical being and he had to transform himself. What are we saying here? Something wild. Anybody got it? Okay. Flying is a euphemism for distance. When do I need to fly to you? I got to go to LA, 6 hours. I got to go to Israel, 13 hours. I got to go to Miami, 3 hours. Flight represents the idea of distance. Let's use a more psychological term. Flight doesn't only represent distance. Flight also represents dissonance. That because I feel myself, therefore I have to fly, so to speak, out of myself, out of my present ego, and I have to now search for you. And I have to now go to you and go to where you're holding. So what does it mean that Michal has to fly with 1 flap of the wing versus Gavriel with 2 versus Eliyahu with 4? Chesed is much more fluid and therefore much more bittul. The transparency within the consciousness of Michal energy is much more chesed. And chesed by definition means that I think more about you and less about myself. However, I still have to flap once because chesed at the end of the day is still a faculty. Is still, what is the Alter Rebbe saying, Tanya? About ahava, about love? Yesh mishe oyev. That at the end of the day between 2 beloveds, I'm still doing the loving. And as long as I'm doing the loving, that means that my presence and consciousness is still apparent. Whereas David HaMelech says, and the Alter Rebbe echoes this so many times, Ich will garnish, right? I don't want anything. I don't want your Gan Eden, right? What does that mean? I don't even want to love you. I don't even want the capacity to love you. Why? Because the moment that I'm loving you implies that there's a duality here. That there's 2 separate beings. So Michal, at the end of the day, even though he's chesed and that represents love, and he's truly a transparent conduit for the divine desire, nevertheless he has to flap once, which represents the idea that he has to go, that the dissonance is still a little bit there. Gavriel, how many times? 2. Why? Because Gavriel is Gvura. And Gvura is already a little bit distant than Chesed. Chesed is the first emotional faculty. Gvura is 2, which means it's 2 from 1. And therefore, Gavriel B'shtayim, he flaps with 2 because the density of his personality causes a greater distance in physical flight, whatever that means, and greater dissonance in psychological flight. And therefore he has to do it twice.
Does that mean it goes through Chesed?
Huh?
Does that mean that Gvura goes through Chesed?
I was thinking about that. I don't know. That's a good ha'ara. That's a great point. That means to say that because Gavriel is the idea of Gvura, and his precedent is Chesed, therefore he has to go, maybe that's the idea of 2. But simply speaking, not what does it mean to go through Chesed, whatever that means, is the idea of that I have to deal with myself and my distance. Versus Michal just has to deal with the distance. He himself is what is Chesed. But at the end of the day, because he's his own faculty, his own being, there has to be some level of transparency. Huh? Oh, so Eliyahu Hanavi. What is Eliyahu Hanavi? Is he a malach? Or is he, look at the Alter Rebbe, Eliyahu Ba'arba. Eliyahu has to go through 4. What's the 4? Im gufay. Shehaya tchila gashmi v'nehafechul. Being that Eliyahu Hanavi was first a physical body, that itself determined his distance and his dissonance. Now, notwithstanding what happened to Eliyahu, he never passed away, the idea of going in a flame, in a chariot and a flame to Shamayim. Nevertheless, Eliyahu, being that he started off physical, therefore he had more flaps, more dissonance, more distance to achieve. He had to do more. He had to find a greater level of transparency to achieve. Yeah. So Michal, the least, the idea of Chesed, Gavriel, Gvura, a little bit more, and Eliyahu Hanavi Ba'arba. Im gufay, shayatchila gashmi v'nehafechul. And being that he has transformed himself, the transformation is fantastic. But what happens when you transform something? There's always a vestige, there's always residue, there's always some dross left over that you have to pick up. So Eliyahu Hanavi, by the fact that he has to come to Bris Milah, and he has to testify that the Jewish child, Ashkacha, this week's Parsha, got it again, Baruch Hashem, and he has to testify what? That the most seemingly crass part of the male body is going to become circumcised and the foreskin removed. This is a great avodah for Eliyahu Hanavi. The idea that he has to go from a place of ruchni to a place of gashmi, that's a very, very intense thing. Why? Because he was once gashmi. He doesn't want to go back to gashmis. So being that he was once gashmi, now he goes to ruchni, he doesn't ever want to come back down here. He knows about that. Michal, Gavriel, Rafal, like we learned in this week's Parsha, they have a mission to do. They turn into Aravim, it says, right? And they fulfill it. But there's no dissonance there. Why? Because they've never tasted the taste of physicality. So there's no, I'm not sure, I don't want to. Eliyahu Hanavi, because he was once physical, therefore there's a greater level of what's the word I'm looking for? Resistance. There's a greater level of resistance because the once physical being creates the sense of tension or resistance that he doesn't want to go back. And therefore it turns into 4. Now, if you want to say the idea of spheres, like Rabbi Shmuel said, it's interesting to note that Eliyahu Hanavi, we say, is living, right? Never passed away. And what is the 4th sphera? Midas HaNetzach. So Netzach is what? Mamish the Nitzchias. The Nitzchias of Eliyahu Hanavi causes him to be able to come back into this world. But again, the more distant you are from the first original sphera, the more mileage you have to get through. Okay. How do we bring this up? Is because we're saying that when a Jew makes a bracha, the ability, the capacity for a Jew to be able to make a bracha is because he stems from Pnimius HaOlamus. He comes from the inner recesses of Hashem's desire, and therefore he's able to become a co-creator with God, which is not the case by the Malachim, that even though they do execute and fulfill Hashem's will in the most precise and clear of ways, nevertheless, the fact that they're from Chitzonius Olam always means that there's some level of residue, some level of resistance, and therefore they don't make brachas. There's no need for it's dafka the Jew that's able to reveal the emuna in the physicality. And again, this is the meditation when you say Baruch Ata Hashem Elokeinu. We said about the idea of Elokeinu. Elokeinu means our God, which we are able to say that because we come from the Pnimius of Hashem. Once we have established how deeply woven and connected we are with Hashem, and that our bracha is the manifestation and revelation of that deep, deep connection. And again, the intimacy that the soul experiences with Hashem is right now in this very present moment, and that's why we don't have to fly anywhere. It's only Michal and Gavriel and Eliyahu that have to fly. We're not flying because there is no distance, and there is therefore no dissonance. And that's what the bracha, the formula of the bracha creates. Once we've established that, he's the king of the world. That upon the world, it's the revelation of Hashem's nobility. That there's no such thing as a king without a nation. And therefore, through this formula of the bracha, which now we understand the bracha is not just this terminology that we use from our mouth, but rather it is literally the spiritual arm that pulls down Hashem's presence into creation. We draw down a revelation of the infinite light of Hashem within the full collective of the Jewish people. That we strengthen and embolden the faith of Hashem in our hearts. In a manner of revelation, as if you're seeing it. So Baruch Atam Shalom Kedosh Shahakol Niyah B'Dvari is I literally see that the physicality is a transparent conduit to the spiritual energy that's vivifying it. Achamukdam Livracha V'Hamshachas Hashas Gilui Zeh Hu HaMevarich. However, what is the introduction to a blessing? And the ability to draw down this emunah through the formula of the bracha is only through who? The mevarich, the blesser. In order to do a blessing, you have to be a blesser. How do you become a blesser? Shehu hu ha'isa mitzvah. Lefisha mitzvah same kelin ashas erin tov mamish. That you are the performer of the mitzvah. That the mitzvah is literally a vessel for the indwelling of the infinite light. Literally. and therefore the blesser, i.e. the Jew, ubahem ve'al yadam mamshich or insof lamata. By way of them and through them, we draw down this infinite light physically in this world. When do we see that in the bracha? Vezeu asher kiddushanu b'mitzvaysav. That which he has commanded us, that which he has sanctified us through his commandments. Okay? So prior to asher kiddushanu b'mitzvaysav, the energy of godliness, spirituality, faith, your soul, your heart, whatever you want to say, was still in a state of abstract, subconscious. When you say asher kiddushanu b'mitzvaysav, you are now causing from a state of concealment to a state of revelation, from a state of subconscious to a state of consciousness, in which he has sanctified us through his commandments. How does that create the full revelation of the blessing? So asher does not mean by which. You look at any English siddur, the word asher is a very interesting term. Asher means that which. Like you don't even need it. Baruch Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam. Huh? Like because. So you say, Shek kiddushanu b'mitzvaysav. Make a prefix, right? Shek, that he sanctified. Shek kiddushanu b'mitzvaysav. Baruch Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam. Shek kiddushanu b'mitzvaysav. Very nice. Make it smaller. Asher is the essence of the whole entire bracha. Asher is literally the crown, the keser, which we translated beautifully last week, is not only the oinig, the pleasure, but also the purpose. The purpose in which causes us to become sanctified through his, not commandments, but connections. That this physical mitzvah, which we're calling a connective, it's like the connective tissue within the body, this is the connective tissue between physical and spiritual, and we are that bridge. So asher miloshin daha, shu nesinas tam ledavar, asher in, say, grammar, which means daha, that which, shu nesinas tam, that this is it's the giving of the reason for the matter, which means that which he has sanctified us through his commandments. But here he doesn't say. Asher means to say, like ashrei yoshvei beisecha, right? Ashrecha Yisrael, right? Fortunate are you, praiseworthy are you. In Yiddish you say geschmack, right? The asher is the geschmack of the bracha. The asher is literally the pleasure, the satisfaction, the gratification, that which you have triggered and stimulated the deepest purpose of Hashem within your blessing is in the word asher. I said this one time before, that the Baal Shem Tov went to a town and they hardly knew how to read Hebrew, but they were very passionate. He didn't know ma'aminim b'nei ma'aminim. And it says that when he left the town, their Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah was on fire. You could see a fire burning from the Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah. So what did he tell them? When it says Ashrei Yoshvei Beisecha, which means Ashrei, fortunate are those who sit in your home, right? It means that the Jewish people are, like, fortunate are the Jewish people that are able to learn Torah, right? But it's not speaking about that. It says Ashrei is Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah. Ashrei is Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah. That yes, true. Amen is like Emunah, right? Yehei Shmei Rabbah. That Hashem's name is great. How is He great? Because the Jew sits and learns. The greatness of Hashem is only the Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah can only exist because Ashrei Yoshvei Beisecha. Because you sit down and you draw down godliness, like we spoke about in the first mimer.
That's a good question.
Yes.
So why is it that not every mitzvah has a bracha before it? Does that make sense?
Yes, wonderful question. We may address it in the mimer. Even deeper is that some brachas you say before and some brachas you say after, right? It's called over lasyasan. You have to fulfill it as you're doing it, right? So the women know this very well. Yes, candle lighting is over lasyasan, right? The bracha before, so I'm making it before. But what do? I wash my hands in Wasser and then I say the bracha, right? That's the fulfillment, right? And then you eat, right? But we do both by the eating. We eat before and we eat after. So it's interesting.
What do you mean before?
We make the bracha before and we make the bracha after, right?
Teaching Torah, you don't say bracha.
Huh?
No, it's teaching others, you don't say bracha.
We have yeah. There's no.
The teacher teaches us.
It also goes
the
down
Litvisher,
to
they're very
mitzvah.
mad, they have a
Like
whole
the
entire
Daf
thing.
says, you don't make
Yeah,
a
yeah.
bracha 'cause you don't want to
Look in
waste
every
time.
Gemara, in every Gemara
No,
it says.
you know, I think
Shouldn't interrupt. Just quickly give them the money. Don't start making blessings.
Because it depends on the listener.
Oh,
He doesn't
also
accept it.
very nice. Then there's also the idea of al versus le. Thing in Psachim. Remember Psachim? Al versus le, right? Al achilas matzah or lehadlik ner Shabbos, right? Okay, whatever. Just food for thought. We'll get there. You want all the answers right now? You're like, yes. I'll answer you quickly that perhaps we'd say, similar to what the Rebbe says in Hayom Yom, that Chabad Minhag is not to say L'Shem Yichud before every single mitzvah. L'Shem Yichud Kudsha B'Richu Shchinte is a spiritual formula that Sfardim and Chasidim are very, very makbid, that before every single mitzvah they say this idea, L'Shem Yichud, for the sake of uniting, Kudsha B'Richu, the Hashem, blessed be He, Ushchinte and His divine presence. Okay? And then you have a whole thing. Sfira Sayomer, Tefillin, maybe even Shabbos candles, whatever. So the Rebbe says, when you say L'Shem Yichud before Baruch She'amar, that's including all of the Yichudim that you're making by every single mitzvah throughout the whole entire day. Maybe you can apply that idea that some things that are mitzvahs that don't have blessings is because they are, so to speak, impregnated within the original bracha, some other bracha that is like an umbrella bracha that is considered under. Maybe you'll say, again, this is just off the top of my head now, that you make hamoitzi, so you don't have to make any other specific bracha, because it's under the umbrella of a meal. So too, this particular mitzvah, I'm not sure what you have in mind.
No, I'm just thinking there are mitzvahs like tzedakah,
right?
I don't know, other things.
Right. That may be under the category of something else. Yeah.
The Rogachover says that all mitzvahs can be categorized as 10 principles, and from those 10 principles, all mitzvahs stream from. And he says, if I was smarter, I could give you one principle, which every mitzvah streams from. So
that they're all offshoots of each other.
Exactly. So, yeah.
So this, I just want to say clearly that the Alter Rebbe does not say this idea of Asher right here where we're learning. He just explains it literally. Asher means deha, which means because, or that which. Vetzivanu. What's vetzivanu? Miloshin tzavsa. Tzavsa means to say, not Savta, grandmother. Okay? Tzavta. Tzavta means a bond. Veiskashrus, and a connection. No, we'll use the modern day psychological term that we're all in love with, attachment, right? This is the attachment, yeah? Be'or ein sof baruch hu, the attachment to the deepest part of yourself, which is the infinite light. Shoyresh ha-mitzvahs l'mayla, which is the origin of all the mitzvahs up above. Lekach yesh lanu koyach l'amshik gilu ein sof baruch hu bebracha zu. And this connects us and gives us the power to draw down this light of the infinite one in this physical blessing. So what do we say? I know the Alter Rebbe brought us the idea of the Malachim, which was fascinating, but it was all in order to understand how immense the power of a Jew is, and specifically the ammunition, the spiritual ammunition that we have in order to transform the world and literally cause darkness to become light, is through the imbuing of a bracha, which is basically the strengthening of our emunah, that Hashem is physically present, and not only the strengthening of our emunah in Hashem, it's the strengthening of our emunah in ourselves to be proper conduits to Hashem. This is the Baruch Ata Hashem Elokeinu Asher Kiddishanu b'mitzvaysav. We have been sanctified. We've been made holy. Our holiness, right? Kedushasi l'mayla mikdushaschem. That my holiness is now funneled through your holiness, and you're able to now cause a transformation of creation. Why? Because I've permitted you to do so, and also that you're causing, so to speak, kiviyachol, a transformation in me. I'm on the second column on page Vav. It says in Yerushalmi, Gemara Yisham Perikama de Brachis, Halacha Ches. If I can have, please, preferably an English sitter. Thank you. If you don't see it, right there behind you, Levi, there should be a few on the thing. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. We got
You're
it.
going for some sushi.
Oh, can I please have some sushi?
Change it up.
Okay, so now the Yerushalmi says the idea of matbea katzar paiseach bebaruch ve'enoi choisem bebaruch umatbea aruch paiseach bebaruch ve'choisem bebaruch. No, Chevra, translate. Anybody? Anybody's a wise person in Yerushalmi? So the Gemara students know how to translate. Coin. You translated as coin? No. What coin? What is a coin? What is a coin?
It's the
What is a coin? Matbeya, katzar, a coin really means like currency is made in the what's the idea? The mold. You said mold? Very good. In a mold. Okay? And this printing is the printing of George Washington and the printing of Jefferson and the printing of who's on the 100?
Benjamin Franklin.
There you go. Benjamin, all about the Benjamins, yeah? So depending on what mold, now I know paper money is different, right? But it's all the idea of, this is what makes a 20 a 20, this is what makes 100 a 100, this is what makes a penny a penny. Penny, we dismissed it already? Penny we got rid of? Okay. 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 Wow. Yankees back. For the Zoom, yeah, somebody said it didn't make sense to keep the penny. He's the Panovich Rebbe. Yeah. No pun intended. So now, we're calling it a matbeya, which literally means a coin, but now we have the idea of a mold, okay? Matbeya kotzar, so now you have two different styles of brachas. You have a bracha that you open with, but you don't close with. And then you have a bracha that you open with and you close with. What are we saying? One is called a long bracha, and one is called a concise bracha. Okay? So what makes it a long bracha, what makes it a short bracha? It's not about the actual length of the bracha. We call it long or short depending on if it has an introduction and a conclusion, versus only a introduction and no conclusion, or only a conclusion and no introduction. Okay? So now, so before we continue, I'm just going to give you a few examples. Sorry to get too lecture-y or classy, but we'll make it interactive, okay? We say every day in Birchas Kriyashma, Baruch Ata Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, Yoitzer Oru v'orei choshech. Okay? Where's the finale of this bracha? Baruch Ata Hashem, I'm going to spoil it for you, yeah? Yoitzer HaMe'oros. Yoitzer HaMe'oros, right? This is called a bracha, a matbeya aruch or a matbeya kotzar? Aruch. Because you have an opening and a conclusion. Okay? Versus the next one, Ahavas Oilam Aftanu, right? It's very long, okay? But how do you conclude? Baruch Ata Hashem aboicher be'am Yisrael be'ahava. Is this a matbeya aruch or matbeya kotzar? Kotzar, very good. Why? Because it doesn't have a
Closing.
Good. Now, halachically, the Alter Rebbe speaks, makes sense of this, that the Avas Eilam Aftanu, it's very important not to make a separation between the two, because this is called a bracha that is attached to its chaver, right? A bracha is, what's the terminology? Asmucha lechaverta, I think. The idea of it's attached to its brother, okay? So Avas Eilam Aftanu, because you just had Baruch Ata Hashem Yoitzer HaMe'oros, even though, yes, this is a matbeya kotzar, but don't make an interruption because you want it to be strung along, and therefore the whole entire thing is, even though, yes, it's two brachas, but it's attached to the previous one. Make sense? Where do we have this also? Okay, for those who are not davening Bereishis Kriyashma every day, why not? I'll tell you why. It's hard days. Okay, so you have Asher Yatzar. Okay, Asher Yatzar is what? Matbeya kotzar, matbeya aruch. Baruch Ata Hashem, Asher Yatzar, right? And then you have Baruch Hashem Reifechol Basar Umafli Lasois, right? Matbeya Aruch, right? The long one. Okay. What do you have right after? Why not Baruch Hashem Elokai Neshama Shenasatavi? And then Elokai Neshama concludes Baruch Hashem Amachzir Neshamas Livgari Mesim. So that's a Matbeya Kotzar. But you have, it's attached to its friend Elokai. Why don't you have a bracha right there? Why don't you have Baruch Hashem? You did. You have Baruch Hashem Reifechol Basar Umafli Lasois. Elikai. You should pause a little bit, but it should say Elikai. The Alter Rebbe says, don't make a hefsek between the two, because now you're caught, when you don't make a hefsek, when you're stringing along the Elikai, you're making it part of the Matbeya Aruch. You're making it part of the longer blessing, and we like that, because you're not interrupting between the two. Okay?
Can you just define one more time what makes a Matbeya Aruch and Matbeya?
Yes, the Matbeya Kotzar does not have it either doesn't have an opening or doesn't have a closing. So, for example, Shahakol Niyavid Varei is a Matbeya Kotzar, right? Okay? Most of our brachas are Matbeya Kotzar, okay? But sometimes you have Baruch Ata Hashem Yoitzer V'orei choshech, and then you have its conclusion, Yoitzer HaMe'oros, that's a full blessing, which is called Matbeya Aruch. The molding is a full molding, a complete molding. Okay? Vayichul Hashamayim? Kiddush you're saying?
Start with
Yeah. But you do have Vayichul Hashamayim. It's Bari Pri Agafen, and then you have Baruch Atah Hashem, and then you have Baruch Atah Hashem in the end. Now, why am I going so nuanced and I'm sure awakening many people's perhaps negative associations with their halacha teachers? God forbid. Only goodness. Yeah? So let's see. It's because we're going to learn the spiritual, Kabbalistic dimension of what a matbeya aruch and a matbeya kotzer is. Everything in life we have to know has a psychological, spiritual underpinning. And it's very, very amazing that when you see something in halacha and you see something in Gemara and Talmud, we'll use the fancy term, the exoteric dimension of Torah, and you leave it alone. We've discussed this a few times, but I'm saying it for the sake of the Zoom and the recording. Yeah? Pshat, Remez, Drush, we said this before, is the idea of Pirud. You have 4 Torah interpretations called Pardes. How do you make a beautiful orchard of Torah interpretation? You need Pshat, Remez, Drush, and Soid. You need the simple, the homiletic, the Drush, the mystical. You need the full orchard. Everything is growing together. What happens when you remove the Soid, the mysticism, the psychological, the deeper frontier of Yiddishkeit? When you remove that from the Pshat, Remez, Drush, what do you get?
a horse. Fair.
You get fered. Very good. But we said pered is what? Is in Hebrew, what is it? Kisus kefered. It says in Hebrew, what is a fered? Not only a horse in Yiddish.
A donkey.
Very good. No, it's a mule.
Sorry,
A mule, which is what? The connection between a horse and a donkey that cannot have children. It's sterile. So a fered is pshat remes drush when you don't have a soid, when you don't have Kabbalah, when you don't have a samach, which is the idea of the full circle. Yiddishkeit has to go full circle. We'll use the modern day term, the holistic, right? It's holistic. If you just leave it in the pshat remes drush and I just tell you, here's a matbeya kotzer, matbeya aruch, very good. What did you do to my life? So you made me learn a new halacha, and you left me hanging in the pshat remes drush. So now what happens? I only become, God forbid, spiritually sterile by not being able to produce, you'd say, spiritual chidushim and children in my soul. But also you have pirud. Pirud means separation. I've now separated the physical capacity of Yiddishkeit from its spiritual. And what happens when you divorce one from the other? What happens when you divorce your physical components from your mental or spiritual? When you divorce action and behavior from its psychological underpinnings. There you go, beautiful. That's exactly where the cognitive dissonance we say. That I'm living in 2 worlds, 2 separate realities, but somehow I know that they should mesh and meld together as one. So this is how when I say we, who's we? But unfortunately, Jewish people, grow up in this way that we learn the whole halacha, we heard the whole Gemara, halavai, but we still have this pshat remesh drush anxiety because we're not learning the soid. Now, I'll go the other way. What happens to a person who gets so excited by mysticism, only learns the soid, don't give me the pshat remesh drush, so it's a soul without a body. A soul without a body is not alive. It has no concretization towards its power. So you need both, you really need both. But right now I'm explaining to you, the Alter Rebbe is bringing the idea of matbeya kotzer, matbeya aruch, the idea of this halachic idea, and now we're going to delve into it deeper.
With this word, you see the connection between Said and Das. It's like Das doesn't give you anything new beyond what you have. Elamai, the connection between now it actually matters to me.
Beautiful.
So to a Said.
Beautiful. Yeah. Lehavin, we have to understand. So why? Why is Yiddishkeit? Does halacha divide between this matbeya aruch and matbeya kotzer? These 2 moldings or frameworks, I like the word framework, of a bracha. Also, the terminology that's used, and again, he's bringing from the Yerushalmi as a Gemara, but it's also used in halachic form. He uses the term matbeya kotzer, matbeya aruch, and he says chosim bebaruch, right? Ve'ena pesach bebaruch, right? That you chosim literally means ksiva va chasimata, means a stamp, a seal, right? It's the idea of a seal. Say the word ligmor, right? To complete, to conclude the bracha. He's using a very specific term. Chosim bebaruch. V'havalevim mesayim. The Alter Rebbe says, mesayim, just say conclude. Why chosim? Why stamp? Why seal? Okay. I'm bracing myself because this is it just shows you and this I think why we keep coming back, is because, I wanted to mention, this is why I had one thing in my mind. I'm not just trying to say this as pseudo Hasidus psychology, make you guys feel good, 2025, make myself feel good, pat myself on the back. I don't know which Hayomim it is. I believe it's in Adar. You don't have it in front of me now. Yeah? My walking Hayom Yom. I believe it's in Adar. I'll confirm it afterwards. But it says that every single halacha, it was a job of the Rebbeim. Like, I'm not even quoting it properly. But it was a job of the, if you chat GBT, whatever. If it was a job, let's see, not Shabbos, everybody becomes the teacher. It was the purpose of the Rebbeim in bringing Hasidus to the world, that every single halacha should be learned with its Hasidic and Kabbalistic explanation. Okay? So anytime, and I'm really, maybe this is for future generations, whoever's going to listen to me, or whoever's present in the room, anytime you ask the question of why is it like that, the Rebbeim were on your side. If you had a dismissive teacher, like, okay, let's just move on, and didn't explore you got it? Amazing. And didn't explore the side, it's not something missing in you, it's something missing in them. Adar, okay? Adar Sheni 5, the 5th of Adar Sheni. Studying Talmud and related works, studying Chassidus and actual Avodah. Is this it? Yeah. Are all, I don't think this is it, okay. It's okay, I'll read it anyways. Are all imperative. Not only can there be no thought of superseding one or being superseded by the other, on the contrary, their relationship is symbiotic, mutually enriching. An ignorant person cannot be a chassid. No, this is the other way. This is why you have to learn Talmud. So the study of Talmud and Halakha is an absolute necessity. Who is a chassid? He who conducts himself with piety towards his creator. So there must be the study of chassidus, and the ultimate purpose of study, after all, is actual avodah. Okay, this is still good to learn. Yeah. See, we were getting too inspired, so she had to bring us back down.
We do have the whole mimer, Lehavin, Inyan, Chassidus.
Inyan Chassidus. Yeah.
Which just explains this point. But the Rebbe seems to make a chiluk between Kabbalah and Chassidus, where Kabbalah is considered the side, where Chassidus is considered Pnimius, considered the Yichud in this.
He calls it Nishmasa de Nishmasa, according to the Zayt.
Right. And he shows that it's all connected to every single mitzvah you see in the Maidani as the example.
I'll refer, Baruch Hashem, I think we have 11 or 12 classes on Inyan Chassidus on the Soul House Chassidus on Spotify. Put up already. Not waiting to be put up. Anyway. Okay. Here we go. Why are we using the terminology seal or stamp when it should have just said the conclusion? Ha'inyan kihine noida. Sheish beis bechinas alma diskasio bechinas alma disgalia. We know Kabbalah teaches us that there are two dimensions of reality. One is called the clandestine world, and one is called the exposed world. In our own self, in our psychological frontiers, we have that which I present to my friends, that's which I don't present to my friends, and that which I don't even know about myself. Okay, but we're not focusing on that right now. It's called Alma Disgalia, that which you see, the world of what you see. On Alma Disgasta, the world that you don't see. Iskasta from the word kisui, right? There's a covering. Okay? So now, these two terms are not necessarily specific to any which world, but rather are explanations of the worlds of how they are relative to each other. So for example, before the Alter gets into it, let me just give an example. Oilam hamachshava. Everybody's thinking right now. Even though you may be thinking about something else other than this class, you're thinking, and even if I tell you don't think, you're thinking not to think. Good. Now, speaking relative to thinking is Alma de Isgalia, the revealed world. It is now the exoteric dimension of self, because you can grasp onto it, you can hold onto it. Relative to Alma de Iskasia, which is the concealed world, which is called Machshava. Okay? Now, Machshava, relative to what we call in Chassidus, Midos, the emotional strata, the emotional frontier of the self, is called the Alma de Isgalia, the revealed world, relative to the more emotional faculties, which are called the concealed world. And the emotional frontier, relative to the intellectual frontier, is considered Alma de Isgalia to Alma de Isgasia. Okay? And then we say the intellectual frontier, Chachma B'nai Das, the cognitive faculties, relative to one's desire, will, and pleasure and purpose, is called Alma Disgalia relative to Alma Disgasya. Clear? Amazing. V'hinei Alma Disgalia Nema. Regarding Alma Disgalia, this open, revealed world, it says. And now we're quoting again what we just quoted above in regards to the Malachim. What do we say about the Malachim, right? Remember, Umisham Yipared, and from there, meaning from one conglomerate head of water. It turned into four heads. Arba neharis keneged arba machanes ashchina. These four heads, which we said is the Tigris, the Euphrates, the Nile, and the other one, yes, are all corresponding to the four camps of the Shechina, which the four camps of the Shechina are represented by the Malachim of Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel. What does that mean? What does that mean? That just like the beginning, or I'll use a different term, the reservoir, the subterranean waters, is the beginning, the genesis of the four rivers. So too, Machane Ashchina, so the Shechina is the beginning, this divine presence, whatever that means, is the head, is the beginning of these four camps of Machane Michal, Gabriel, Raphael, Uriel. So just like the river offshoots and now spills over into different directions, so too their personalities and their composition and spiritual makeup causes them to quote unquote spill over in different directions of how to serve Hashem. But really, where do they come from? They are emitting all from one head, from one unified state. Okay? This is called Alma Disgalia. What did we say before? We said that they fly, right? Why do they fly? Flight is the idea of covering distance and also psychologically covering a dissonance, a space between us. Umisham Yipared. Look at the word Yipared. There's a distance, right? There's a separation from there. From where? When the Shechina enters into a state of Bria Yetzirah Asiyah, that is the beginning of what we call separation. Now, what does that mean on a physical level? Okay, when we start to speak, Malchus Peh, when Malchus enters into our mouth is our nobility, our ability to be the king and queen over our environment. But when we begin to speak, and four different people are listening to us, those four different people are interpreting it in different ways. Even though it's the same, generally speaking, but depending on their constitution, composition, makeup, and development, will they then clasp and grasp on whatever you're saying? Okay? This is a mashal, what I just said, for Malchus as she enters into Bria Yetzirah Asiyah. That she is now vulnerable and susceptible to the demonic forces. Notwithstanding that at that very high location are the Malachim as well. But once you have pirud, once you have separation, you are now vulnerable to other extraneous forces trying to mingle into your godliness, into your spirituality. Okay? We'll unpackage this a little bit. That energy is now enclosed in the three subsequent worlds. And this is what we call hishtalshelus, the evolution of worlds as it descends from one chain to the next chain. So now, these four camps, which we're calling the four heads, right? The four beginnings of those rivers. So now where are the rivers going? They began somewhere, but now they're spreading out to Ethiopia, to Egypt, to whoever.
And each one has a different...
and each one has a different temperament, and each one has a different... I said India? Yeah, India. Yeah, I said Ethiopia. Is it? Okay.
Also.
Yeah, all of them.
Egypt and Ethiopia are going the same way.
So now each nation is now going to drink a different way, right? You like it hot, I like it cold. You like it sparkling, I like it regular. This is called that the energy of the four camps of Machane, Michal, Gabriel, Raphael, Uriel are now precipitating into the next world, called the Ayin Sarim, the 70 ministers. Who are these 70 ministers? The 70 ministers are called the archangels of the 70 nations of the world. And the 70 nations of the world are now vivified and energized by the energy that they are getting from who? From these malachim. But how do they interpret the energy from the malachim? They don't interpret it in a godly way. They interpret it in a concretized physical way. They are actually, it's very hard for them. It's such an opaque distance or the distance is so opaque that they cannot see the source of where it really comes from. Nase alma de pruda. So from alma de isgalia, which we said is the personification of the worlds of the malachim, which again, alma de isgalia means that Hashem is now openly and revealing to them godly energy. And they are now absorbing it in their own personalized way. Michal with kindness, Gabriel with severity, Raphael with a balanced temperament, with compassion. They're all connecting and energized from this thing. Now, who's being plugged into them? Where does their rainwater go, so to speak? To the Ayin Sarim, who don't have the language of godliness, who don't have the language of spirituality. So now, the 70 nations or the 70 archangels are now what we call Nasa Alma de Pruda. From the state of Alma de Isgalia, from the world, the open, revealed world, now you're causing what we call a disintegrated, splintered world. You hear the difference? I'll say it in the mashal of what we said before. Malchus Peh. It's all about Malchus, right? When I speak, so now everybody in this room is like, wow, makes sense. Okay, I think, or doesn't. I have no idea what he's talking about. Whatever, yeah? But now imagine now I'm going to try and tell the class, okay, I'm going to learn the Alter Rebbe, I'm going to try and tell it to somebody who's never learned this language before, right? Who's not familiar with any of this, okay? So now it's not Alma de Isgalia. To me, it's Alma de Isgalia. I'm now sharing to you, wow, amazing, awesome, beautiful, whatever Giluyim, right? Alma de Isgalia, whatever Giluyim I got. But what is this guy going to interpret it as? You fell off your rocker. You're crazy, right? Alma de Pruda. He's now going to take your energy and it becomes disintegrated, fragmented, splintered, and that's called the world of separateness. So from the world of revelation, i.e. me speaking, that's the origin of speech, comes the world of separation, comes the world of disintegration. Visham, and in that capacity, and in that world, and in that space, from the Ayin Sarim, from the 70 archangels, Yesh Achiza v'Yenika l'Klipas v'Sitrachra l'Yonik v'Akdusha kiviyachol, is now a grasp and a suckling and a nursing of the Klipas and Sitrachra, of the demonic forces and the shells and husks of existence, l'Yonik v'Akdusha, that they are now nursing from holiness, so to speak. However, Ein Yenikasam ela Moise Hashefa. But where are they nursing from? The Malachim got the Pnimius. The Malachim got the inner dimension. They were at the class. They knew what was going on. This is called Pnei Hashchina, right? They're called Machane Hashchina. Well, again, when does the problem happen? We spoke about this last week, right? Eishes Chayil Ateres Baila, right? Eishes Chayil Miyimtza. What do you say? No. Keep going. Laila. Vatite terev levesa, v'choik l'narisa, right? Vatite terev levesa, vatite terev levesa. She gives terev, she gives food to her household. Vatite terev levesa, v'choik l'narisa, and her Vatakam b'leila, vatite terev levesa. Okay, that was the beginning. Vatakam b'oid laila. She awakes as it is still night. Vatite terev levesa. And she gives fodder, she gives food to her household. Look how beautiful this is. This is Chassidus. You ready for this? Not that she gives fodder to her household. When does she do that? She awakens as it is still night. That's speaking about Malchus as she is still in the state of Bria Yitzir Asiyah. Bria Yitzir Asiyah is considered darkness. She's trying to raise herself out of the darkness to be able to what? To give fodder to her household. Who's her household? That's the recipients of that energy. She gives food to who? To the ones that are nursing from her. But when does that happen? What state of affairs is the food being transmitted in? In what domain, in what dimension is it psychologically? Laila. It's all about nighttime. That the demonic forces are suckling and nurturing and nursing up from her. And this is but in what manner are they nursing? What does it say? Vatitein teref, right? From the word like treif, right? What are they getting? They're getting the moisre. They're getting the additional components. Moisres upsoilis means the dross, the leftover, the remnants. And they're not nursing from the primary source of holiness. So what is the nature of this idea of nursing and these demonic forces suckling from these excess aspects of holiness, what does that mean? Can only occur in a state of Alma Disgalia. Because I showed you, because I revealed a part of myself to you. Because the open world, the revealed world, in and of itself, in truth, is not a world of nifrad. Remember, you can't call Machane Michal, Gavriel, Rafael, Uriel in a state of separation. They're not. They're in a state of revelation. But what do we say? What did we say before from Tanya? As long as you're doing the loving, yesh mi she'oyev. There's still a lover doing the loving. And as long as there's a lover doing the loving, there's an issue there. Why? Because we're not truly one. We're two that has to now mesh together as one. Ahava gematria echad. But at the end of the day, Ahava still causes me to be separate from you. So the malachim, as much as they are so one, they're energized by the spiritual energy of Hashem, that the Shekhinah is pulsating through them, and therefore it's called the Giluyim Alma Disgalia, and therefore you cannot qualify them or quantify them as davar nifrad chas v'shalom, as something separate or disintegrated or splintered yet. Like it's written, Hashem is God. What does that mean? That Havaya, Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is the engine of creation, Hu HaElikim is the same. Is hateva. Ha'elikim is matcha hateva. Elashu bechin is gilui mashahaya behelim b'alma diskasya. Rather, he's revealing that which was in a state of concealment, which is what we call kabbalistically alma diskasya, the concealed world, the clandestine world. Ukemashal, and he gives a mashal. Okay, if this was abstract enough. Ukemashal avlat, for example, like a fetus, shemitztayer bebeten hanekeva, that is now developing in the female's womb. In a manner of what? That there's a division of the bones and the sinews. That what does she do? What is the woman's nature? Bina, is it giloi or is it pirud? That in her need to megale, in the feminine's need to reveal, by definition she also
Needs to separate.
separates. Okay? And that's exactly what, think about it with a seed right in the ground. The seed in the ground has to crack the shell. So the shell now becomes subsidiary to the actual, what's it called? To the sprout, very good. To the sprout that is germinating within the ground. So the germination only can occur, what do you call the germination? Is the giluyim, right? The germination is the gilui. But that can only occur when you separate. And we know this psychologically as well, right? The author is giving an example of the child in the womb. But what about afterwards? As the child outside of the womb develops, right? In psychology, we call it the individuating child, right? As it individuates and separates and matures. Maturity is what? Maturity is that I'm able to be a grown-up, independent of myself, recognize my creator, recognize my parents, recognize my predecessor, honor them, respect them, etc. But also the greatest desire and joy of a parent is the individuation eventually of the child. Now, God forbid if it occurs prematurely, either before or after, meaning to say, if the 45-year-old guy is still in the... Girls are already batting their eyes, yeah? If the 40-year-old guy in the parents' basement is still then, and he's still saying, mommy, right? That's what? That's a level of babyishness that is not congruent with his level of life. And also, if the 4-year-old starts saying, I got to go to Wall Street, right? It also doesn't make sense. So everything has its time and everything has its space, okay?
Hashem created teenagers so we would know what it feels like to create something that denies your existence.
Very good, very good. So now we're giving this mashal that anything that is megala something, anything that has to be in a state of revelation, by definition, it has to also be in a state of separation. What does it do? It now absorbs from the procreative seed of the male, that from the white is created the bones. What's the difference between the procreative seed of the male and the space and womb of the female? By the way, how do you say womb in Hebrew? He says the word beten and nekeva, but we call it rechem, right? Why? Rechem from the word rachamim, right? Compassion means that I have the capacity to fit you into me. Okay? A woman has the innate capacity to allow somebody else, not that men don't have it, but I think men have to work a little bit harder, is because the physical body is created in a way that there is is innately more space for something else than someone else. Rechem. So what's the difference between male and the female? In the procreative seed of the male, there is no division of bones and sinews in actuality yet. It's only it's latent within the potential of that seed. In a state of concealment. But through the development and the gestation of the fetus in the womb of the mother for 9 months, it then formulates into the formation of what we call a fetus and eventually a baby. And it goes from a state of concealment to a state of revelation. What do we just say? In the creation, so this is amazing. Think about this. We're using this as our mashal, right? This is a metaphor. Because I'm going to go to the nimshal and I'm going to go back to the mashal. In the nimshal, what are we saying? That in the formatting and creation of creation, Hashem had to have an alma diskasya and an alma disgalia. A concealed, clandestine, latent world, so to speak, impregnated, and then a revealed world. Now a birthed world. Okay? That's how Hashem creates our world. And again, everything is relative to each other. Bria is alma disgalia relative to Atzilus. Machshava is relative to Midas, right? As we said before. Within the creation of the world and how Hashem did it, that layout is replicated every time a child is born. Alma diskasya, alma disgalia. Why? Why does it have to be this way? Why does it have to be the melding and the fusion together, the synthesis between masculine and feminine, the seed and the womb and the egg? Why? Is because Hashem wants to show that within our biology, there's alma diskasya and alma disgalia. You have to have both. You have to have the concealed energy of the masculine, and you have to have the revealed, almost separated energy of the feminine. And both are contributors to the creation of the world, both are contributors to the creation of the child. Just like the analogy of the fetus, that when it develops and concludes its growth in the formulation of its bones and sinews and limbs, so now look at this. What happens when you give birth? Men, don't be too fast to answer. What happens? It's pushed out of this fusion of egg and sperm together, what we call moistris. What are the moistris of the body? We call it nails and hair. The nails and the hair are really the residue, the offshoot, before tumah. The biology of it is that it is skin, but it's skin pushed out of its regular domain. Okay? What do we say? What's the word? No, your epidermis, right? The epidermis, yeah? The hair and the nails are an extension of, I don't know what I'm talking about, but the epidermis are some level of skin. Huh?
Part of the skin system.
But cellulose essentially manifested.
But can we say that it's an offshoot of skin?
Skin cells, yeah.
It's a result of it.
Very good. That's, huh?
That's for keratin. Your hair and your nails is keratin.
But where does it come from?
It grows from your
Hair
eyes.
follicles.
That's all he wants to say.
By the way, it's for
That's
your
all.
epidermic system, not your cardiovascular, not your...
Okay, so look what he says. It's pushed out from that system, whatever system you said, the hair and the nails. This is the sign of the ultimate conclusion of growth of the fetus. Shehu b'shleimus. How do you know that the child is complete in its gestation? Meaning the cherry on top, right? The finale of the growth of the child is the hair and the nails. Which means to say what? What is he saying? Clearly the inner faculties, the inner organs, the heart, the lungs, the pancreas, the spleen, the kidneys, whatever you want to call it, right? Are absolutely developed. And what's the proof of its development? What's the proof of its growth? Is the hair and the nails on the outside. The hair and the nails on the outside, which are called moistris, they're not fundamental to the breathing, to any other system of the body. But they show us that there's a conclusion here. Now, what do we grasp on? Now you said tuma, right? Why are they tuma? Because they're not fundamental. Because they're not fundamental. Now, I'm vacillating between one second. I'm vacillating between the biology and the spiritual psychology. So bear with me on the seesawing back and forth. Biologically speaking, because they are they are that which is pushed out. They are the remnants. They are the residue of what we call the completed child. They are that beruchnis as well. And therefore, after you get a haircut, wash your hands. After you cut your nails, wash your hands. When you wake up in the morning and the nisham and the tuma left through you, it says to take a shower, by the way. But what should you wash? Is your hands, because the hands are the extension of the body. But which part of the body, by the way?
The Tiferes.
No, but the torso, which is the seat of the emotions, which the seat of the emotions is where we can get discombobulated, and there can be a dissonance between mind and heart. So therefore, what's the extension of the heart to the outside? What do we do? What do we physically do when I give you my heart? I shake your hand, I hug you, right? All of that is with the hands. They are called the moistures, they are called the extremities. What is the extremity of the extremity? What is the residue of the extremity? Are the nails and the hair. Yes.
I guess if you scratch your head, you should wash your hands.
Mm-hmm.
When you grab your beard, you don't wash your hands.
Ketzer versus Gura, right?
Yeah, interesting. Don't tell the women. Yeah. Yeah. So again, the idea of tuma, we're really. Where are you? David. Reuven Bendel. As Reuven said, tuma, right? Tuma is the attachment. Tuma is the disconnected world trying to attach itself to a holy world. When we say holy in Yiddishkeit, what are we saying? Holy means attached. No, holy means very good. Kedusha means separated from what? Separated from the detached world because it's so intimately connected with Hashem. Something that is kadosh, right? That is truly holy, is separated, is unified, and thereby separated from the separate world. So she's asking, when you touch your shoe, right? This is the idea of the moistness, right? This is the excess. Anytime there's the idea of excess. By the way, when you go to the bathroom, yes? It's the same theme, guys. What are you doing? You're doiche, that which is unnecessary for the body to live with. So whatever is eliminated, and now, depending on if it's, sorry for the katanim or gedolim, whatever, number one, number two, will be a greater level of tuma. Because there's greater release, greater elimination of a greater unnecessity. I don't know what to call it. Something that's not necessary for the body. So whenever you have this, you have to wash your hands. The washing of your hands is the spilling over of chachma. Water is chachma. But where are you spilling over? Not your head. The head doesn't need water. It's the hands that need water. The hands are the midos. The hands are the extension of my emotions, in which they are the externality of the emotions. When do we become confused in our life? Is when we have a detachedness between the emotion and the intellect. Where can that happen the most? The hands are a euphemism for the detached parts of our body. So that's why it says in Ayom Yoim, right? If you want to rebuke somebody, what should you do? Cut your nails first, right? What does it? Cut your nails first. Make sure that you're not speaking from a place of detachedness. Make sure you're not speaking from a place of nails, of a place of tumah, of a place of that I'm just criticizing you because what? Because I'm deflecting my own self-criticism. So now, when the child emerges from the womb of the mother, so now, he's saying two dimensions here. Number one is the physical biology of the child. And the completion and growth of the child is indicated by what? By the conclusion of the growth, which is the hair and the nails, on the physicality of the child's self. And when the mother gives birth, there's what we call, what do we call it? There you go. Right? The placenta is what it was being attached to, and it's the psoilis yosef by her opening herself, right? The cavity. In which what? This psoilis, this residue, this vestige, whatever that was, again, it was all a state of development from the sperm. Because the vlad, the fetus, is only created from what she does in herself, which is called birurim. What does the woman do? What does the feminine energy do? We are all the feminine energy, masculine, male and female, Jews, right? We are all doing birurim. We are all sifting through creation by dint of the fact that we are the manifestation of Bina, and therefore we have to now sift through what is good and what is not good. Just like the physical. So now who's doing this? The masculine doesn't do this. It's the feminine that does this. It's not the male that does this. The male is the benefactor, but it's the female that actually has to now thresh, so to speak, and go through, like we said last week, right? Lezamer aritzim. It has to prune the thorns, right? So now the physiology, the biology of the body is, I guess it's a conduit for Hashem's wisdom. In its wisdom says, this is part of you, and this is not part of you. So now, it's interesting. This is going to get sidetracked, but what happens to a woman, mideoraisa, after she gives birth? This is not the same as the menstrual cycle. She becomes tamei from the birth itself, right? Isha kitazrev eled zachar, depending on a boy, depending on a girl, 7 days for a boy, 14 days for a girl, and then 33 days later, 60 days later, we don't pass in that way, whatever, but just for clarification's sake, why? Why? Oh, because a life force was existing in her, and now it exited from her. That itself becomes a detached energy. She was connecting to something that was almost like Orein Saf, right? It was the expression of Orein Saf in her, and now it's detached from her. So being that that's the case, and again, psychologically speaking, there's this postpartum depression, right? That is not in everybody, God forbid, but happens, and it's the idea of I'm mansplaining right now. Forgive me. I'm just explaining based on the Tzemach Tzedek. Yeah, that the idea is that there's this nefila. There's this psychological nefila, and by the way, God forbid, that's what we call a stillborn. It's called a nefila, right? It's not only that it's not living, it fell, but there's also a tremendous impact on the mother as well. So now, even though there's such joy in the birth of a child, something was there and now is not anymore. That has to be grieved. So Hashem creates a grieving period for, depending on a boy, depending on a girl, which is a whole other story there. But the idea is that there has to be some type of space between connection between husband and wife. In that space between connection of husband and wife, I'm now taking time for myself to say that I was existing with something additional in me for 9 months, and now that that's not there anymore, I have to now respect that. I have to now honor that. That honor comes with the idea of, Tuma doesn't mean impure, God forbid. Tuma means that now I can become overly attached to my needs. When I'm overly attached to my needs, it implies that I cannot be attached to my spouse's needs. And therefore there needs to be a distance. Okay. Again, not to go too deep into that. I think we discussed it one time before.
Same thing monthly.
Monthly as well, yeah. That there's a certain, again, this is not the woman's fault per se. This is Hashem imbued into creation in Chava's psyche, that because there's an over focus or an over concentration on the physicality of the body. Therefore, it doesn't allow the connection in the seamless way that Hashem intends there to be between husband and wife. That's in a succinct way you could say it. Meaning to say, Nida, relative to Gan Eden, is an aberration of a woman's nature. This is not the way a woman was meant to be. There was no Nida. But because something occurred, the dissociation, the distance, the severing between the Eitz Hadas Tevera and the consumption of that, what came to the world? Tuma, translated as impurity, is a Christian concept. What really came to the world is a state of detachment, is a state of disconnection. Because I'm disconnected from God, therefore by definition I'm disconnected from myself. What's the manifestation of that disconnection from myself? Physically, an egg is now disconnecting from my body. And that occurs once a month. Because of that disconnection, I have to honor, respect, grieve that state of that time period. And therefore, the unification between husband and wife to bring a child into the world is prohibited. But the prohibition is not because bad, evil, negative, God forbid. It's the idea that now Hashem is saying that because there's this aberration of nature, it's not the true nature, so that has to be respected.
Has to be sensitivity given to the time.
Correct. Yeah, I said we wouldn't tangent, but we tangent. Kachal derech mashal, by way of example. Behigalis niglis seder ishtalshel be'amid isgalia. This is all a metaphor. What we just said about the vlad, what we just said about the fetus, and the pushing off of the subsidiary parts that are not 100% fundamental to the growth of the body of the fetus. Kachal derech mashal. This is his example. Behigalis niglis seder ishtalshel be'amid isgalia. How Hashem causes the revealed dimension of worlds. From a state of concealment to a state of revelation. With an abundance of division and separation and levels and echelons, differing in their form, in their image, in their details, in their composition, in their makeup. So whenever you have something that you reveal, by definition, you're going to have moisrei shefa. You're going to have excess. When somebody makes the suit, right? What is there? There's an additional material. The additional material that you don't need for the suit. It's called moisrei, right? You eat a nice steak, a ribeye. There's the bone that you're not able to eat. So where does that bone go to? It goes to the dogs, right? What are the dogs? The dogs don't feel the meat of the bone. It doesn't feel the pnimius. It only feels the chitzonius. It only feels the moisrei shefa. So therefore, they're going to say, wow, this is godliness. And they now interpret godliness in a totally different form. They don't see the meat, they just see the bone. So now it becomes avodah zarah. Now it becomes a foreign worship. Because what do they see? The worship that they're doing is based on the foreignness, that there's no pnimius there. Now it becomes the additional excess of revelation, of bounty. Upsoilis, and now there's dross and residue. The sediment is now pushed to the outside. And this becomes maiver, this becomes transmitted. The shefa becomes transmitted. Maiver means it passed over into the domain of the clasping of the sitra achra. When does this occur? Because she needs to give food to her household, and it's occurring at night. Therefore, again, when Malchus speaks, there can be a manipulation of the talk, manipulation of the speech. Again, specifically because there's a revelation. Which is not the case by the concealed world, as long as there is that Hashem is still hugging his pnimius. He's hugging his people. He's hugging his soul. He says, don't leave me. When you leave the kingdom, then you become susceptible and vulnerable to manipulation and negative forces and demonic forces. So the Alma Diskasia stays true to herself. That's the way Malchus is still an Atzilus. She did not enter Ragleha Yordes Mavis. Her feet enter into death. She did not enter the capacity of death, like we spoke about last week. Death is not death. That means to say the diminishment of energy, that I can't see the life force anymore. So in Alma Diskasia, there maintains an authenticity to the connection. She'll be skalalus, that there's an inclusion. I don't know what Bereishis. You have to look it up. Yeah, and there is the intensity of his might, and the Satan and the Peresh are not able to cling there. Okay, guys, you ready for this? We're almost there. This is an introduction. To what? To understanding every time you say a bracha, matbeya katzar, matbeya aruch. Which dimension of reality are you connecting to? What exactly are you drawing down? Are you drawing down something that is drawing downable? Are you drawing down something that has been open to you to now contain and be an absorber for? Or are you actually connecting to something that never was revealed in the world yet? Are you connecting to something that has been concealed from one state to the other state? Let's see. The shorter form of a bracha the more concise form of a bracha. What do you say matbeya was before? The framework, the shorter framework, the shorter molding of a bracha is connected to alma de iskasya. Why, guys? Why? Because when I what do you say? It's not what you say, it's how you say it. It's the demeanor, it's the attitude that is not revealed in the words. Right? Say less, not more. In the less, in the nucleus, you have the whole entire thing. So in Alma Diskasya, in the dimension of the concealed world, you have the whole entire energy, and I don't even have to say anything to you. It's almost like in the relationship, right? The moment I have to tell you to do something implies that there's a greater separation between us. If I don't have to tell you to do anything and you intuit what I want, that's amazing. Is that called katzar or aruch? Aruch means there's a greater distance between me and you. What did we say before? Who has to flap the most? Eliyahu has to flap the most. Why? Because there's a distance, a dissonance. So he has to use more steps to get to his destination. Gavriel less, Michal less, because he's just chesed. So matbeya katzar is what? Because I'm so connected to Hashem, all I have to do is say a few words in order to this incantation to reveal the formula, the revelation is compact. It's in a vitamin-sized form. Matbeya aruch is what? It's taking longer to get to you. Why? Because we're more distant. So now you have to explain to me. Not only you have to take out the garbage, you have to make sure that it's on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then you have to. Okay, so giving you I'm giving you what's going on in my life, personal life, too much. Yeah. That what?
Real expounding on everything else.
Very good, very good. Oh, aruch, very good. Well, aruch. Well, one second. Yeah, but it's okay. Good. Geschmack word, yeah. Shulchan. You have to be a Sephardi. Shulchan aruch, right? The set table, right? Erech, that it's organized. But yeah, you're right. Aruch means it's long. Yeah, very good. So now we understand matbeya. We'll get to we didn't answer matbeya. We're just doing katzar and aruch. So aruch, we're going to say soon, is alma diskalya. Why? Because whenever I reveal something to you, it implies that we are more distant. So I have to do more talking to explain to you. Whereas when we're closer, it's matbeya katzar. Because we're so close, because we're so intimate, I don't have to say a word. All you have to do is just, I love you. That's it. The concise formula of a blessing is intimating to the idea of the dimensional Alma Diskasya, the concealed world. Shubichin is tipa levad. This is like who? The male procreative seed, behiskalulus, that contains the whole entire body of the fetus, latent, concealed, like the seed prior to its germination. In its state of concealment. Everything is in potential. So everything's there. And therefore we call it the short coinage, the concise formula. Katzar means not that it's missing anything, not that it's short, like short. Short means to say it has everything, and therefore it doesn't have to say anything. Okay? That it includes everything. It's the comprehensive energy. Alma de iskasya. It has everything there. Like we said, what's the deepest part of yourself? Your will, your desire, your pleasure, your purpose. So everything that you know in the cognitive faculties is just an offshoot of that. So matbeya katzar in your psyche is what? Is keser. Your matbeya katzar in your psyche is the alma diskasya. Shekoil hakol. It includes everything. But lashon katzar, it's very concise. What is lashon? What is language? Language implies, there you go. Language implies that I don't know how to talk to you. I don't know how to interact with you. So therefore, very good. Now it reveals your thoughts. But in revelation, by definition, means that there's a distance. Amazing. And therefore, all you need is an opening. Baruch atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, shehakol niya bidvarei. Most of the blessings are matbeya katzar, right? In your day. Now again, it's interesting. Davening is matbeya aruch. It's much harder. Yeah? And liftoyach bebaruch. It opens up with a blessing. Liyas bracha. What are you doing? Liyas bracha v'hamshach me'eritzo baruch hu atzmoi. That matbeya katzar, this shorter formula, because I'm so intimately connected with Hashem, therefore I'm drawing down from the Ein Sof itself, What do we say a bracha was? What's the purpose of a bracha? Back to the beginning of the Maimer. That what? That when I make a bracha, I'm impregnating within my soul I'm a co-creator. Literally, I'm the emunah that is latent to me, that is contained within me. The blessing is the revelation, the manifestation of the essence, the essential infinite light of God. That is not relegated or limited to the contours of reality. You're literally connected to the essence of the essence, and therefore all you need to do is paiseach bebracha, paiseach bebaruch. There's just an opening. You just have to give a little bit, right? A little nudge, a little bit. That's all the bracha is. That you're connecting to the atzmos. In atzmos, you don't even have to speak. I'm speaking because I want the atzmos to be revealed in the physical world. So I have to say baruch ata. This is so gorgeous. Once you draw down the energy of this bracha, matbea katzar, and you draw this down in the concretized way by saying those words, this energy is bal timoit oilam vad. It does not wither. It does not move. It is an immovable force. Why? In this bracha, there is no potential for the nursing or suckling of the demonic extraneous forces.
But they only nurse when you once you do an avera anyway.
Let's see. Aval matbeya aruch. Maybe we're going to have revelations here. Aval matbeya aruch. Now, by the way, avera is, remember, Sitra Achra is the general umbrella name for many things. Sitra Achra literally means other side. So Sitra Achra can literally even refer, again, I don't know this for fact, but we said before that the fact that there are 4 camps, right? Again, I'm not confirming this. This is just me right now. I should confirm it later. Could you even call that Sitra Achra? Meaning to say, other side means the fact that I came from 1 to 4 already means that it's other side energy. Because there's a yiparid. It says it, right? Yiparid, right? Yiparid misham. And they splintered from there. Now again, even though they splintered in a form of Machane Michal, Gabriel, Raphael, Uriel, okay, and they're mamish connected to holiness, but we just said, the fact that they are 4 and not 1 disintegrates and precipitates into the next world called the Ayin Sarim, and the Ayin Sarim become the source of the Klip and Sitra Achra of the physical world. So yes, you could potentially say that even in holiness, you have vestige, residue of that holiness that spills over, like we said, the bone that's given to the dogs from the beautiful steak dinner that we had. So that itself can be called Sitra Achra. Here he says it here. I didn't have to say. In the exposed world, when you get to a world of revelation, and not only revelation, but what we said, by definition, the fact that you have to reveal means you have to separate. And in that separation, that creates what? Psoilis. That creates the leftover, the aftermath, the residue. In a very, very divided, perhaps we say divisive form. In that state of affairs, there can be the nursing and suckling of the demonic forces. And then you have to now separate them. That they shouldn't nurse from the primary element of Kedusha. Look how beautiful this is. Rather what? There's a passing over of Shefa from the residue and vestige and the leftover. And therefore you have to conclude with the Baruch also. What do we say? When you're in the state, when you're in the psyche, when you're in the consciousness of Matbeya Katzar, that the Arein Saf is literally present right there, there's no Sitra Achra. But when you enter into a world of Alma Disgalia, now Sitra Achra, Klipa, can't wait for that nursing of Kedusha. So what do you now need to do to your bracha that you opened with? You have to close. The closing is the chasima. The closing is the signet ring, the stamp. The idea of the choisem. That why do you, remember what the Alter Rebbe's question was? Why don't we use the terminology l'sayim, to conclude? To finish off the bracha. Finish off the bracha with Baruch. Why do we say lechoisem to stamped? Oh, ve'inin achoisem hukmei loshen choisem shal ala yigeres. The idea of the stamp is like a stamp on a letter. You know those fancy stamps, right? The ring, and it has a little emblem in it. Mibachutz, the wax, right? Why am I doing this? How do I seal it off? Is honor for somebody that shouldn't read it, can't read it. Ish zar, a foreign person. That I, the writer of the letter, don't want you to know what's going on there. So therefore, look how amazing this is. In halacha, in Talmud, the terminology that the sages instituted to be able to say a bracha arichta, right? A bracha aruch is with the term chasima. Why? Because what? Because you're now entered into a state of alma deiskalia. And because you entered into a state of alma deiskalia, it requires even more protection. How do you protect the alma deiskalia energy that can be potentially manipulated and nursed from? You have to make a chasima in the bracha. And therefore they can cling on to that lengthy formula of a bracha. Because the energy that's drawn down in this consciousness of the bracha is called the revelation of that which is concealed. You're not in the Orein Sof anymore. You're not in Atzilus anymore. You're not just united and one and intimate with the Creator. Rather, what creation has now, what does it say? Emerged its ugly head. What's the term? Reared its ugly head. Amazing. Think about it. What do we do? Right? Yoitzer or v'arichoshech. Right? He creates. Then that's the chasima and the that's the opening and the closing. Usually, when we discuss matters, items that are well, I shouldn't say that because every time we make a bracha. Okay, this is my thought.
We don't use the word asayim. We say chaysav daka because so nothing can get back inside of it.
Correct.
It's like a permanent.
Correct. But again, specifically because you entered into the consciousness of Alma Diskalia, and therefore you're discussing, again, the spiritual energy and connection that has been created by your blessing is one that is susceptible to the demonic forces, to the Sitra Achra. Therefore you must conclude, you must seal off the bracha. That there should be only a revelation to the side of holiness levada alone, and not to any foreign energy.
Sorry, that would explain why you're not allowed to say certain things in certain brachas and when you are allowed to say certain
Very good, beautiful, and that's exactly what we said. Again, I brought that from the Alter Rebbe, that a person should not interrupt between Asher Yotzar and Elikai. Maybe why not? Because Elikai, even though it doesn't have a beginning, but you still wanted to attach it to the previous one because maybe this one is susceptible to those things. And the same thing with Avas Olam Avtanu also doesn't have a beginning, but you want to attach it to the previous one because you want to you want to compact it.
But even throughout davening, there's times when you're allowed to say something, say an amen, say this and that, but it's times that you're not.
Very good.
Like
Very good. Oh, interesting. Very interesting, yeah. Why? Because ata chelik v'nachala. Because you are His portion and you are His inheritance. That Hashem is writing a letter to you and He doesn't want anyone to read it. V'zeu ha'hafresh shebein psichas habracha lechasimasa. And this is the difference between the opening of the bracha and its conclusion and its stamp. Ki psichas habracha hu hamshachas hagili levad. The opening of the blessing is the revelation of this energy that is drawn down alone. Lies baruch, in order that it should be baruch. Baruch doesn't mean blessed. Baruch means to draw down. V'nimshach Hashem lekeisol me'elam ad elam, to draw down the God of Israel from world to world. And therefore you can open up, and you don't need a conclusion because it's matbei kotzer. Aval hachasima, when do you need a conclusion? He shetiyam shachas ubikdusha davka, is when you want this to land in a state of holiness specifically. Haboicher ba'ama yisrael. See, he gives the same example. Haboicher ba'ama yisrael. How did you open up Avas Olam Avtanu? There was no opening there. You want to make it again, according to the Alter Rebbe. Baruch At Hashem, Yoitzer Hameoires. Amen. Avas Olam Avtanu. It's called. I think it's a bracha smucha lechaverta, a bracha that is adjacent to its friend, and you want to attach them. Again, Elikai neshama shenasatabi is to Asher Yotzer as well. So haboicher ba'am yisrael be'ava is the conclusion, and it means to say that all the material, all the substance of that bracha has the potential to what? To leak out. to what's the word I'm looking for? To be usurped by the negative forces. And yet, so how do we conclude? Again, what's the bracha saying? I love you, Jewish people, right? Chemla, gedula, gvura, what is it? Right? It's literally a bracha for us to be more aligned and in tune with our soul, right? And what happens? The Yetzer Hara is listening, and the negative forces are listening and saying, "Oh, I can't wait that you're thinking you're going to be so passionate with Hashem and all these things. I can't wait to clean off you and cleave to you." So what do you say? On those brachas, the bracha arichta, the longer bracha, the matbeya aruch, what do we need? No. I'm not letting that happen. HaChasima, Baruch Ata Hashem, HaBoicher B'am Yisrael B'Ava. He who chooses the Jewish people with love. And when he chooses the Jewish people with love, and that's your Chasima, that's the stamp on the letter that none of the negative energy can suckle onto it. One second. That when you say the chasima, you say the conclusion and he loved Yaakov and Esav he hates. Choose for us our portion is Gein Yaakov, the majesty, the beauty of Yaakov, Asher Ohav, which you loved. All of these things. What happens when the jealous ministers are listening to how much Hashem is professing love to us? That's not good. There could be manipulation there. So what do we say? I don't want anybody to read this letter. This is just between me and Hashem. And that's why we don't say Messiah. We have to use Dafka Ksiv of Chasima Toiva. That just like we stamp on a letter that nobody else can read it. That you're protecting it from any foreign touch. And therefore, matbeya aruch is the idea that you conclude with a blessing. The conclusion of the bracha is that you're drawing down from the transcendent energy. This is called the divine protection. Like it says, Hashem Shamrecha, Hashem Tzilcha. Hashem is your protector. Hashem Tzilcha, Hashem is your shade. And therefore, the stamp of the general assembly of the Jewish people, of the Jewish soul, when do we call it who? B'Ne'ilas Yom Kippur. Is the Ne'ilah of Yom Kippur. And therefore, in Ne'ilah, what do we say? That when you say Chasima by Ne'ilah, you are literally meriting the greatest revelation of the above. You're connected to an extremely lofty place. How do I know? Because the whole entire Yom Kippur says what? Lifnei Havaya Titharu. That you're now being cleansed before God. Doesn't mean being cleansed before God. Being cleansed prior to Yud Kei Vav Kei, that the energy that you're connecting to in the Ne'ilas HaChag, in the Ne'ilas of Yom Kippur, is Lifnei Hashem, is higher than the Yud and the Hey and the Vav the Hey. That's where the Titharu comes from. That's where the cleansing comes from. That this is the essential space of the soul, similar to Moed Ani Lefanecha, that we don't even use Hashem's name there, right? That's why you could say it when you're impure. That's why you could say it when you didn't brush your teeth yet. Why? Because we have circumvented the system of names. And therefore, in the Ne'ilah of Yom Kippur, you're connecting to the Titharu of the Neshama L'maylim B'chinas Yud Kei Vav Kei Chuli Ukvei Shekosam B'Mokam Acher. Chaim V'Racha.
Wow. The highest level that we get in prayer, when yesterday, it's the shortest. Why do we say Baruch Atah Hashem Tayim Nafolav?
The Shemona Esrei. Very good. You remember what my father said? Beautiful. The Shema has, what do we say? Avas Oilam. I'm sorry. Let's start. It's the two brachas, right? It's Baruch Atah Hashem, Yoitzer or Varecheshech, and how do we conclude? Yoitzer Amordus. One. Avas Oilam Avtanu, which we said is connected to the Baruch Atah Hashem Yoitzer Amordus. And then, how do we conclude? Baruch Hashem Abayich B'Am Yisrael B'Ava, right? And then, how do we conclude? V'yatzav v'nochem v'nana, Baruch Hashem Ga'al Yisrael. Okay? Now, in Shemona Esrei itself, Atachayin L'Adam Das, and Baruch Aleinu, and how do they all start? They don't start Baruch Atah Hashem. They don't start. The beginning, but I'm saying the intermediate blessings, Atachayin and Refa'enu, they just start. What is that? Is that Matbeya Katzar or Matbeya Aruch? Matbeya Katzar. Why? Because where are we holding in Shemona Esrei? Atzilus, in the intimacy, in the ultimate unification. So therefore, and by the way, that's why we dafka don't scream, we don't sing it. It's all b'chashai, it's all silent. Because when I'm with the beloved, when I'm with the infinite creator, there's no need to speak. It's really a Hashem svasai tiftach. Hashem is speaking through my lips. It's not even me, it's Hashem. So I'm katzar. I'm right there, I'm connected. In matbeya aruch, so therefore I have to have a conclusion in bracha and an introductory bracha and a whole thing in between. But what am I doing? I'm still speaking because I'm in state of Bria Yitzir Asiyah. That's the whole entire davening before Shemona Esrei. Chai the bracha. Mirz Hashem, we will conclude. We'll try next week.